What's up, members? Welcome back to another episode of HyperCast. Thank you all so much for the great reception and for watching and tuning in and commenting on the first episode. It was a lot of fun doing that last week. This week will definitely not be 90 minutes long because we went through so many intros and everything that was going on.
You say that,
but
I have some things I'd like to say.
I have a whole book I want to talk about.
So, Adam, you may have had plans walking into this, but we have other plans. No, I don't have anything to say. I barely was able to put that document.
I was like, okay, what are we doing?
I barely got that document open this morning. I'm all for whatever you want, baby.
I mean, you put some stuff in here, so there's some stuff to talk about.
I put 2 lines.
I copy-pasted what I was supposed to say last week.
Actually, 5 lines.
When it's my turn, I'm going to filibuster until the 90 minutes is up.
He's just going to watch the time code like, not yet, not yet, not yet.
Let me read my screen.
But yeah, I had a really good time talking about some stuff, and, you know, there's so much stuff that happens week to week, day to day. Mm-hmm. And for the thing that I'm going to be talking about, it came out literally the second we stopped rolling last week's episode. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I guess this was kind of easy for me, but a lot of stuff has been going on in the industry and here.
Crazy.
But we should go through and we should at least talk about, you know, what are we working on internally?
Yeah.
What's happening this week, next week, all kinds of stuff. So we record these on Wednesday. They drop on Monday. So technically things will have already happened, like our Hyperdrive.
Right.
Will have happened.
But you know what won't have happened yet is that new episode of Kolak that will be coming out that I've been working on for 2 weeks.
Yep.
And it's going to be bonkers.
Yeah.
We have Matthew Mercer.
Austin Creed, a.k.a. WWE Superstar Xavier Woods.
You got that backwards. It was WWE Superstar.
No, I did not get it backwards. I signed the contract.
Oh, boy.
Okay, because what she sent us earlier said we have to say exactly WWE Superstar Xavier Woods, a.k.a. Austin Creed. But what she said...
The order doesn't matter.
Oh, cool.
But the way he puts it on his cool YouTube channel, Up, Down, Down, is Austin Creed, a.k.a. WWE Superstar Xavier Woods.
He'll be here. And Strawberry 17 and Hector Navarro and Jack's Films.
And perhaps most importantly, me.
That's right.
I actually just asked if you could sit out on that episode to help us run tech.
No, it's cool.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'll run the fucking camera or whatever.
He literally just told you to sit it out.
Yeah, it's cool.
No, we have to figure out if we can fit 4 people on one side of this table. So we have to test that somehow. Because we have a ton of people on that episode, and it's going to be bonkers. It'll be premiering live on Twitch. You should check it out. But we're going to actually have the first half of the episode be Department C FBI members, and then we have a really special thing that Knox over at Scabby Rooster is helping us get set up, which will involve a dead body. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if that's against TOS or not. And then we will switch it to our normal setup. So we have a mid-show switch of the table and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to see if we can pull it off. It's going to be super awesome. But I have not stopped working on it since our last episode. And that's why I have very little to talk about, because it's just been nonstop getting stuff ready for Kolak, which kind of has taken over my life lately. Yeah.
Malika, I love how you put in here things that have already happened.
Things that have already happened?
But you should go into our Twitch VODs and check out the Hyperdrive.
Yeah.
And because we did a Best Picture Hyperdrive. So we basically took a bunch of movies from the year and we did our own pool of Best Picture stuff. Ready or Not, Knives Out, Midsummer, and Toy Story and Cats.
Yeah, so that will have already happened. And this really cool special thing that we're doing Friday, but will have already happened. It won't be on our channel. And I don't think people realize we do this a lot. We help a lot of other people in the industry, and we do things for other channels, other companies. We have a lot of businesses that we work for, and we're working for Crank Gameplays on your last Friday, helping him run a charity stream for WWF. And we have a ton of big guests coming through that it's going to be really cool to have them in the studio.
At this point, you can tell them who came.
I'd also just like to say I love Australia. It might be my favorite continent.
It might be your favorite continent?
It's the greatest place to rock. I'll tell you, they got the best audiences.
So donate for Jack Black's favorite continent.
Beautiful people.
What Zach just said, that's sort of something that I wanted to bring up this episode, because I saw a comment last week that I thought was a good comment on our last episode about how we were kind of talking about how content needs to just sort of be, it's a lot more about the creator and just pushing stuff out and getting it out there and getting your face out there, and quality is sort of taking a back seat lately.
Yeah.
However, we make very high quality stuff, and that's because, well, we have all of this equipment sitting around because we do stuff like that. Like we're shooting a thing for Lasercorn on Sunday also, or yesterday if you're watching this house on Monday. So it's like we have all this equipment because we're a production studio.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like if we have it sitting around, we might as well make it.
Yeah, I
but
think-
absolutely, you can make a great quality show on your webcam or with your phone.
Yeah, and I understand what some people were referencing, but we don't consider ourselves influencers. We're not that type of creator. I feel like we are producers. We're makers. And for makers and producers in our situation, we need the best equipment. We need to be able to operate that equipment and be the best in the industry at what we do. I don't know if people are aware, like, of some of our clients. You know, Corsair is a client. Malika is probably going to be able to speak better to this, but like
Madrina's
WizKids, Madrina's,
Wizards of the Coast.
Wizards of the Coast. We've worked for Microsoft, Amazon,
Nintendo, Amazon, Twitch.
So when we get hired to do this kind of work for other companies, we have to be able to bring the industry standard to them. So
And those jobs are important for us to get as a small business. They, if we don't get them, then we're hurting.
That's
So
very true.
we need this equipment. And then it's like, if we have it sitting around, let's make some cool stuff.
Yeah, baby.
Might as well. I also learned what mukbang meant.
What?
Right.
You didn't know what
People in the
that
comments.
is?
Yeah, it's my favorite Pornhub category.
You know, have you seen the guy who worked at College Humor that did all the Pornhub vids?
No.
That were all like he would do just normal stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you know, ironing a shirt.
Yeah.
You know, but it was like from this like aspect of like the female gaze of like good husband iron shirt. You know? And every time I brought that up, I was like, this is Lucas's future.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to do something like this.
The fact that you haven't yet is a little disappointing.
Right.
You're a little behind.
I've got ideas.
But it was really cool. Like, yeah, it was really great seeing all the feedback from everybody on YouTube, all the great comments about enjoying the fact that we're sharing a little bit of an insight into like what we do here, how we do it, and everything. And a lot of people just wanting more of that, a little bit more insight of like, how do you create these certain things? How do you make decisions for these sorts of things? How do you decide what equipment you want to use? I like all that stuff. That's super fun that people that subscribe and follow us care. Because I think a lot of people are kind of like, I'm just here to just consume whatever you have. But there are people out there who really are like, well, yeah, I would like to know. Like a lot of people are talking about the slider that we use to shoot.
Yeah.
To get this like nice like moving camera angle.
That will be my topic today. I'm going to be talking about some of the tech that we use. Can I say before we get too far, though, in regards to other things that we do here that I don't think people are aware of, I think on the outside, people are more aware of the things we do because we're behind camera. You all refer to Lucas and I sometimes on your shows. They know that we do that stuff. I don't think a lot of people realize what Malika does.
Oh, yeah. It's because I've like signed things, so I can't talk about the things I've done.
You can talk about Jack's Films.
Yeah. So Jack's Films is known as the YI guy. YI standing for Yesterday I Asked You. And together, two of us decided to collaborate and make the kind of next version of that. So Jack's Film started streaming on Twitch a live version of YI, but he had to do that all manually. He was collecting hundreds up to thousands of responses, sorting through them. They were all coming in through like Twitch bots and Google Sheets, which sounded extremely difficult to manage. And he's kind of like this amazing one-man band, but that sounded crazy. And I'm like, dude, you need some tools. And we've been working on creating some tools for Jack's Films. He's already started using kind of the alpha version on his Twitch channel. And tomorrow I'm going to be spending half my day doing the visual design pass on that Twitch extension app, then recording a podcast, then playing Warhammer. So my schedule tomorrow is like 11:30 to like 10:30.
You mean last Thursday?
Yeah, well, they can do the math.
Yeah, they can do the math. No, I think it's important. We often are our own worst enemies when it comes to letting everyone know all the things that we do here as a company. And when we talk about our interactive aspects of how we make content, there's two parts to that. There's the content, and then there's the interactivity, which means we have to build tools for that. Malika's a game designer, and I think that's why she's such a good CEO of the company, is she can understand how those designs need to work and help facilitate their creation.
I think being a game designer also just puts me in a different headspace in terms of what we should be making and the questions we should be asking. I'm going to talk about a book later on that kind of is a glimpse into like some of the questions that I ask, because I feel like if you come from a more linear storytelling kind of world, like you worked on films, animations, that kind of thing, you're not necessarily thinking about interaction in a deep way. And I've been trying to push that more and more as I overtook your position as CEO.
Yep. Oh, no. So, yeah, I wanted people to know kind of some of the cool stuff you're working on that they don't necessarily get to see on our channel, but are things that we do for other companies and other YouTubers and influencers, building those tools. And
I do a lot of private consulting on a lot of games, tabletop and otherwise, even mobile games. And when they want to do like more Twitch interaction in their video game, they'll reach out to us. So that's a part of our business that we barely even talk about.
Yeah, it's a weird one to talk about, I think, because do you all care? That's the question.
That's like the talk I need to prepare for GDC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but I think there is a user submitted question that has to do
some stuff like that.
Yeah,
Cool.
about some interactive stuff. So
Sweet.
yeah, send me the like game design questions.
How's that burrito, baby?
It's California burrito. It's pretty good. They put like some new sauce in there.
Is it their sriracha aioli kind of sauce? I got just the asada because they won't do the California without dairy, unfortunately. This is cilantro. It is a great burrito place in LA that's run out of a gas station, but it's choice.
When you first told me that, I was like, I'm going to kill Zach. What are you doing? But it's pretty good.
It's so
No,
good.
it's good stuff.
Hey, Lucas,
What's up, dude?
didn't you kind of rally us to do something last week?
I did.
Bastard.
What do you want to talk about it?
Yeah,
Do you
let's
wanna
talk about it.
s-
Let Zach
let
Zach brag about how he did nothing to get 150 followers on TikTok.
I'll tell you what he did. He went over to our most popular chat show where people are talking to the audience and talking to the person on camera, and he said, "Hey, follow me on TikTok," and that's just not fair.
You know what? I noticed. I thought I'll just take it up a notch because right after we dropped that, I saw somebody called Swell Boys dropping a comment on our YouTube video right at the top that was like, "Follow Swell Boys, get in on it."
Okay, and we all know how little interaction you get on YouTube comments. No offense, y'all commenting on YouTube, but it's like there were three people that saw that probably.
We had a ton of comments on this video.
We
It was a
totally
great
did, but I was just
interaction.
replying to one person. You were in front of an audience of 300 people saying, "Hey, follow me on TikTok." That's not fair. I don't get that opportunity.
Didn't you do exactly that though yesterday?
No.
When I was on there, you were in the chat.
I was in the
rallying all
chat,
these
but
people.
that's still not the same as being on camera, giving a call to action.
Okay.
And plus, they probably thought like, "Who's Hyper RPG?" I don't know that that's Lucas. That could be anybody.
You just kept posting Swell Boys over and over again.
Well, I mean, I gotta compete, but it's still not fair.
You do what you gotta do to win, baby.
Anyway, last week I issued the challenge that we all get a TikTok and see how many followers we can get in a week. I would like to revisit like every month now.
Sure.
And maybe like see where we're at
That's
at the end of the year.
That's a good plan because I know this knucklehead will give up tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. But what I would like to add on to that, Lucas is using TikTok correctly, and his videos are really good.
I don't think there's necessarily a correct or incorrect way. If anything,
No. He's using the right hashtags. He's using the right kind of format. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's digestible.
It's and we were talking about this before we went live. It's kind of a weird. It's hard to understand their algorithm. And I've only posted 5 videos, but it's really strange. I get what I need to be posting, but I'm seeing no correlation in like what I post and the number of views. It's the same regardless. So I wonder if it's like getting lucky and then getting an audience.
I mean,
don't know.
everything that you talked about last week about Hype House,
yeah.
all of those artists signed with William Morris Endeavor last week.
Yep.
And then 2 more of them signed with UTA today.
Wow.
Yeah, those are like the biggest talent agencies in Los Angeles.
Crazy.
So I've now spent a couple days on TikTok. I'm going to be honest. I didn't start till yesterday morning at 5 a.m. And I still...
I watch religiously.
I still don't have a great understanding of its ins and outs. I've been trying to understand it.
Yeah.
I decided I would try to take a different approach than what you were taking and use it to create discussion and mystery around the show that we already do. So I'm going to be posting videos often that are little snippets of stories and behind the scenes looks into the greater overall story of Kolak to help drive interaction for that. And hopefully one of them gets seen by more things. And if not, whatever, I think the fans of that show will really enjoy it. But I don't plan on using that platform like it's being used by a lot of people. I think I'm just going to treat it as another extension of marketing for Kolak.
I mean, I think like
That's not wrong, though.
yeah, I
Like,
think I think if you find that thing that kind of like motivates your creativity, put that on TikTok. I mean, TikTok started as people dancing and doing like lyric recitals of songs. And now chefs post stuff on there, other creators.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like-
some of the
it's
ones that I follow the most are chefs.
It's maybe a new enough platform that it's like maybe there's not a correct style. So if you've got something you want to try it.
It's like any platform. It's consistency.
Yeah.
I was thinking it would be fun to do some sort of like mystery with the comments and things like that. And since people can do reposts, there's I think there's something there.
Remixes and all kinds of stuff,
I think
yeah.
there's something
Yeah.
we could look into a little bit further for maybe doing some sort of short 50-second story snippets that people can then tack onto. I haven't wrapped my head around
I think
it yet,
honestly
though.
it'd be a fun challenge to create something like that. Like you create the base layer and then everybody can remix it and add to your story.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. But still trying to wrap my brain around it. I don't understand how the For You section works because I'm like, I don't want to see 98%. And I've been searching for things I do want to see and trying to interact with them. But my For You thing is just 90% people in really tight clothes dancing. And I'm like,
So
I don't get it.
my For You is not like that.
Yeah,
Really?
mine's
Yes.
been changing.
Mine's
Interesting.
great. I get a lot of like food,
Yep.
DIY,
Yep.
That's what I want.
animals.
I'm not getting
like
that.
the topics that I
Then
enjoy.
stop watching those other videos.
Yeah.
How?
No,
It's
I know.
all they
it's
show.
tough. Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that's just targeted of like, oh, because I signed up linking it through my Facebook account, and I'm wondering how much data they have immediately from that of like, oh, this certain age male, blah blah blah. Here's
Here's what you're
target.
gonna like.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah, I mean, mine's kind of been the same like yours. Like it started one
Yeah.
way, and then the more I started interacting with like cooking stuff and like Zach King and those types of creators, I'm getting more of that sort of like cooking content creator and business people.
How long did that take? Do you remember before it started switching over? I've only been on it for 2 days, but if I get another day,
I would say it was. I would say it was at least like 5 days, maybe a week. I mean, and I still every once in a while will get certain things because some of those dancing videos are really funny.
Yeah.
So I'll click and engage with it, and then I'll get like 1 or 2 new ones. But then I would say like it's about 80-20.
Yeah.
It does a pretty good job of learning.
I mean, I like those funny dancing videos too.
Yeah,
so
some of them are
just
great.
Kind of like,
Yeah.
did you watch any of the Dame Tokosita with the green alien? Like I watched like 100
Oh,
of
I watched
those.
one of them. Yeah.
I have no joy in my heart. I don't want to see that shit.
But unless anyone has any other pressing matters they want to bring up,
Nah.
I say we can get into some topics.
Let's do it. Let's
with
talk.
a record 20 minutes into the show.
Record second episode.
I know. So this was something that came up, like I said, literally the moment that the show ended last week. I got a notification while we were sitting here wrapping up.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers is apparently going to start using AI-driven technology to greenlight their movies.
Wow.
Dangerous territory.
Okay.
What do you think that means? I mean,
So, let me
you're going to
break
get
it
into
down.
it, but I feel like what's the difference here in just like the already check boxes that they were trying to hit in a boardroom?
Like that's my biggest question is this not already happening and they're just putting it to words and allowing it to be spoken of? Because from what I've heard, this is not uncommon, especially for people like Netflix.
No. So Warner Brothers signed a deal with a company called Synalytic to use the AI-driven project management system. The studio will use the system's data and predictive analysis to influence decisions on projects that are near the greenlight stage. Some of that includes assessing the value of a celebrity, what sort of reach they have nationally, internationally, how much a film could potentially make in theaters with that star, and how much it could make on other platforms. So let's say if it doesn't go to theater and instead Warner Brothers makes a deal with Netflix, how much could that movie make based on how much money they put into it? It's a company that's been around since 2016, and they've sort of been reworking and revising the platform for the last 3 years. And they say that the platform isn't necessarily going to be able to make predictions like, for example, Joker, a movie like that can make $1 billion. But it will help reduce the time it takes a lot of people in the office to calculate how much they think those movies will make, cost, all that sort of stuff, the marketing, the budget for the movie from start to finish. So the big worry, I think, from a lot of people was like, well, if we take out sort of like the creative manpower and the human element of creativity, is that going to suddenly eliminate the creativity of the project overall? And the hope is that it's going to be mostly mathematically driven. So instead of people having to go to a film festival and a movie like what was the movie that they used as an example? I forget which one it was, but it was one that came out this past year. Instead of having to use people to sit there and crunch numbers to figure out, is this movie worth acquiring? Let's run it through this AI system and see if we acquire this project, will at least like get us some sort of revenue back.
Yeah.
So, and especially because a studio like Warner Brothers, just last year, they had a lot of misfires. Like The Kitchen did not do well for them. Shaft didn't do well.
Never heard of it.
Even Godzilla did not do that well for them because of how big of a budget it had. So the hope is that it would help them make better decisions on acquisitions and what movies to greenlight, but not necessarily completely kill off any sort of creativity. And I will say, too, this to me doesn't sound so incredibly different from like what we do.
Yeah.
Because we look at analytics.
We do.
And we, for the most part, like a lot of times we help those, we let those analytics influence us to a certain extent for like how we can do certain things. And a lot of that is not necessarily just driven by numbers. A lot of those analytics are also driven by the audience and what the audience says and the feedback that we get.
Right.
So I don't know how like different this is from that, and more just like on a grander scale, I would say.
My original concern with that, though, even relating it into what we do, if you were to just look at the analytics of things that we do, which sometimes we do, and sometimes like some of our mods will and things like that, they'll make assumptions based on that data.
Yeah.
But when you take the human element out of it, you're missing so much. And we have to always take our experience and our feeling and put it on top of that. And usually, somebody can come to us and be like, well, this did this and this and this. And we can have an immediate rebuttal of like, oh, yeah, well, because of this. But that the computer can't account for all of those variables. I understand you get really close.
Yeah.
And that this is all about minimizing risk. And I hate hearing you say that we also do that, because you're right. And I fundamentally have a lot of issues with it. But I know that we do it. And I dream of a world where we don't have to worry about these things. And I get like when it's your money and you want to minimize risk. Yeah. If somebody comes up with a tool that says, the movies you might not have one big hit, but you'll have 10 that all make a profit, which in the end will give you more of your return on your investment. That's probably better. But I worry because I feel like we're kind of already there. And I feel like Marvel's already kind of doing this, and you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Look at Blumhouse.
Yeah. And Blumhouse might be one of the best examples of it working well.
Yeah.
But I worry that we're just going to end up with a lot of everything's mediocre, and people will be taking less chances on bold ideas. And the thing is, most bold ideas fail.
Yeah.
But when that works...
some of the most famous movies usually have failed.
Yeah. But when it friggin' works, man, we're left with art that you can't replace. And I just worry that we're going further and further down this track of mediocrity, of just average. And then everyone will rave about it like it's this biggest thing because all they have to compare it to is other mediocrity. And we're it bums me out.
The whole monopolizing, I think, is worrying, that there's just like a few studios and they're figuring out like exactly like down to a science what movie they have to make like a blockbuster hit. But I think a positive thing that I don't know if it's often forgotten, but it's like movies are made by artistic people. So they may be starring in these blockbusters, but a lot of these actors and directors, they're going to want to make their weird shit. And they still want to be involved in these like smaller projects because they really want to challenge themselves. So I think regardless, we're still going to have good movies. And last year was an awesome year for movies of like just weird art house stuff that was really fun to watch. I think that will always be there, but I think it's going to get harder and harder.
But most of them got snubbed by the awards.
Yeah.
And it used to be the weird art shit that was crazy good would at least get awards.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that doesn't even seem to be getting it the attention it deserves. It's not making its money in the box office. And as much as I think Amazon and Netflix are to blame for this because they really perfected these models, they now seem to be the savior for indie films.
Yeah.
Just let
Which
it go
is
straight to
wild.
digital.
Yeah.
And it is wild to see how that's all kind of turning out. And I wish I had data for that.
Yeah.
I wish I could actually say like, these movies that go straight to whatever, or even say Midsummer, which we were talking about. It had an iTunes official release of the director's cut.
Yeah.
Does it actually work?
Yeah.
And does it mean that in the future we don't have to worry about the fact that these movies aren't going to get
Which is
greenlit
kind of
for-
annoying because like you bring that up and they have the director's cut available in international territories on disc. And here it's only available digitally. It's like, how do you make those decisions of like what movie, based on what market it is, like, do you know for sure you're going to sell? I mean, A24 has been, and I love A24. They make some of the best movies, but like they don't press any of their movies on 4K. Some of them are digital only, some are DVD. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why can't more services have like some sort of like formal request where I can ask to have something in a specific format?
Because nobody cares. Not enough of us want to see Lighthouse in 4K.
I know.
It's interesting to hear you talk about this, Zach, because I'm extremely happy about this news and I'm very excited. And like, I completely disagree with a lot of your opinions.
Great.
One, like I said, I come from a different background. Video games have been doing this for a long time. And guess what? You know, Riot, Blizzard, they've been making billions of dollars, a lot more than movies in the box office. So movies catch up. All right. Number two, there's a lot of biased, I'm going to say it, old white men making decisions with a lot of money, but the data and the numbers show, hey, diversity. Hey, have a black director, have a female writer work on these films. And so this might democratize what movies get made.
But the people who set those algorithms and tell it what data to base it off of are also biased.
That's
this is
true.
a problem with the Academy.
And that's
you know?
a huge problem, games, too, because it's not the data, it's are you asking the right questions?
Right.
And because correlation doesn't also mean causation. But then there's the third thing, which is Netflix, which I think is a really extremely hopeful kind of experiment because, like, I love Netflix original content. I think a lot of us here also love it. And there is a computer science math term that is like blanking out in my mind. But basically, you can aggregate data and then you have like, okay, so, you know, narratively, an exciting thing has to happen on episode 3 in the first 20 minutes, blah, 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 blah. You're right. Creative people, artists, Lucas, they will always use their own creativity. Sometimes they're even more creative when you put them in this like small sandbox, with these constraints. And with computer science, it makes more sense to not kind of go in order, like brute force, like we'll test option A, B, C, D, E. Instead, you're gonna find success faster if you're like A, F, Z, L, you know what I mean? And so that's why you see so much experimentation on Netflix, and it's working for them, and I love it. So I don't necessarily think this is like evil, and I think, like you said, it's already kind of happened.
Oh, go ahead.
I think the headline's a little clickbaity
Yeah.
and evil. This is not AI, and I think that term gets tossed around lazily.
It's software.
It doesn't sound like AI to me. Like, I don't know enough. I didn't read the article, but it sounds like just a shit ton of data and pulling from data. It's not like computers
it's
being
looking
like
at analytics, basically.
Yeah, it's not computers predicting things based off their own thoughts that they're having. It's just looking at data and being
Input,
like, this is what
output.
worked, this is what didn't. We have a shit ton of like little things that we're looking at, like, I don't know, even like the weather on the way to the movie theater and this like location, shit like that. Like, that's just a ton of data. That's not like really artificial intelligence.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think in regards to that Netflix statement, though, I just to play devil's advocate and rebuttal that a little bit, Netflix has been getting a lot of crap lately for the way they're handling a lot of this stuff. They make a lot of promises, and the same data that puts a show on is the same data that makes them cancel it after one season. Or, you know, and then you find out there's this huge fan base for it, but they're just like, you know, like there's like this abandonment kind of aspect to it of just like, well, you know, algorithmically and data-wise, it didn't do what we wanted. So this art that so many people are enjoying and find really important, gone.
But that's a tale as old as time, you know? Like, I heard it, you know, every couple of years they say, are they going to make more Firefly? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's nothing new, but I think there is some opportunities here to maybe, you know, shine the limelight on some underrepresented creators and also create a more international discourse on what is being created.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's just a difference in there's like an optimistic viewpoint and a negative one. I know I'm often going to have the negative one.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle about it. I'm like, this sucks that it's like maybe stealing creativity, but it's also like it could be in like enabling creativity in a way too.
Yeah, because you never know what director's going to come to you with what project.
Yeah.
Like Ava DuVernay's a perfect example. Last movie I think she had out in theaters was A Wrinkle in Time, but she has since done like 6 different projects.
Yeah.
A lot of them are on TV. A lot of them are on streaming services. She's producing and writing a lot of stuff. What algorithm is determining how
Well, even
good?
she said, like, go to the audience.
Exactly.
You know, and I completely agree with that. It's just like, why hold yourself to an old standard if that's not where your audience is?
Yeah.
Find your audience. Go to them.
Exactly. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think, like, who knows how much more data or insider information we'll necessarily get on this, but I would like to see in a year from now maybe like where this is at, and if filmmakers come into direct contact with it, is it a hindrance or is it something that has helped them maybe? I don't know.
I can say from the game design angle, the old guard hates it, and the
sure.
new guard feels like those old geezers have egos that they need to get rid of.
I agree with that right
Yeah.
there. In the shitty projects I've seen greenlit, just because it's like boys club, this is my buddy,
Yeah.
let's make his project.
Nepotism.
I would
Yeah.
love to see that shit go through AI, where the AI is like, no, this is a bullshit script. What the fuck?
I mean, every year there's a bunch of movies you're like, this got made only because someone knows the head of the studio.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where TV is really exciting, though. And TV in the last 10 years has become like this bastion for creativity. Who would have thought? Where
I
movies...
think like over 500 Netflix original shows were greenlit this year or
Oh
something
my
like that.
God.
Some crazy number.
The shit that we watch on TV right now blows my mind.
TV's insane right now.
Yeah.
There's so many, just like, it's like a movie every episode. So many shows like that.
And the creativity that's being put into those. And I feel like a lot of those choices are taking huge risks. And I
What
always...
would the algorithm have said to something like Watchmen?
Or to freaking Breaking Bad. When Breaking Bad came out, AMC did everything different for that show.
Yeah.
And they decided to allow the creator to have as much time in the writer's room as they wanted.
Yeah.
And not be held to some strict schedule. AMC was like, we're not typical cable, so let's not be a typical cable
let's do it
channel.
our own way.
And I feel like in a lot of ways, they kind of started that revolution of being like, well, why are we doing this a certain way? Just let it happen the way it
Right.
needs to happen. And nothing should have made Breaking Bad work. And Vince Gilligan's like very singular drive on it made it do so. And it kind of defied a lot of what was working on TV at the time.
Yeah.
And now we're in this like crazy golden age of TV. Most of what we watch are shows, long form narrative content more than movies, which is really wild. And I know we're still trying to like pull you into that world. I know you're still like you're a diehard movie guy, and we're trying real hard to be like, Adam, you gotta watch this thing. You gotta watch this thing. Come
It's
check
happening
this
more
out.
and more.
And it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And Watchmen
Son of a
definitely
bitch.
is, I think, where we hooked you. We
Oh,
hook you.
yeah.
We hook you with Watchmen. Now
You're
we're
like, come watch. I'm like, oh, is this? Oh God. Is
now we
this
need to
really
get you
any
watching
good?
Dark, but you got 2 seasons to catch up on that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I got a lot
so
of stuff to catch up on. I just spent 3 hours watching Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah, waste of time.
All right, you're next, Zach. According to this list.
Well, I just wanted to talk about some of the equipment that we've been using lately to kind of update our streams. I was using that actually, and then you went away from it.
I'm sorry that you were using my iPad for your notes.
Well, you had them open, so I was like, okay,
Okay,
I won't
all
open
right
them up.
here. Boom, look.
But anyway,
Your Highness.
They're fighting.
wow. So we've been experimenting a lot lately with different tools behind the scenes to kind of automate and improve our processes. Because as you see, this is our whole team. So, we've been using a lot, and I will admittedly say they're a partner, Corsair. But we've been partnered with Corsair before they teamed up with Elgato. But now Elgato is also owned by the same people as Corsair. And we use the Stream Decks for a lot of stuff. We've gone as far as having a Stream Deck mounted on our wall, linked to our Streamlabs page with every profile for every show, to where somebody could just walk up and be like, oh, we're about to start this show, hit a button, and now everything is set up for that show. And now we use it for controlling the lighting. The lighting that we have in this studio is all digital. Should I show them?
Yeah.
Why not?
Computer, shut it down.
Doesn't like your voice.
Computer, shut it down.
I don't know why it didn't work. I feel like an asshole.
Computer. Computer, can you hear me?
Its computer's too far away.
Shut it down. She just said yes, I can.
We're doing a great job here, guys.
Computer, shut it down.
There you go.
Hey.
Computer, go to work. So
now you're just training the people who watch on our Twitch channel to tip for that command.
Oh, it won't work. We turned off those things. We learned very quickly when we started using Alexa. That made me feel like a huge asshole. I'm glad that we have that on tape. But we've been automating our whole system here, and we have it set up to where you can control these lights with the Stream Deck. You can control NDI output from vMix into our live streaming
What does
program.
that mean for a layperson?
NDI is a new kind of video format created by NewTek.
NewTek something. Let me look it up. I'll tell you what
NewTek
it stands for.
digital interface. Not interface. It's not because it's not an interface. Digital. He's looking it up. But
Device interface. Network device interface.
network device interface.
Developed by NewTek.
And it's basically sending a video signal over your network.
And it's really reliable and clean.
Reliable.
Well, reliable if you're working in conditions where there's one network, which is most people.
If you have a really robust network, we've started to find limitations when you start using more than one NDI stream at once. But you're basically sending out over your network a stream of information that you can then pull into another program without having to use RTMP, which has a very long lag to it. It seems like it's not doing much compression. It's really clean. And the biggest and most important aspect of it is you can have alpha layers. So we've done things on Coloc before where I've had After Effects open, and you can actually set Adobe to output an NDI over your network, and then our operator over at the board can just have a layer with NDI on it, and I can start making VFX and pushing effects in After Effects directly to our computer as it's outputting to stream. We stopped doing that though because After Effects isn't reliable enough to not have little
You
blips.
saying that, my hair started raising on the back of my neck. I'm like, oh,
But we have been using vMix now, where we'll output a animation MOV with an alpha layer, import that into vMix, and then vMix over NDI. So we're just playing a video. We're not trying to like pre-render live in real time.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that's how a lot of sports networks will do
Yep.
it. They have the machines to do that. We're not there yet.
We're not ESPN.
Right. We're trying, but we're not there yet. But we're really big on finding these tools that are kind of available at a consumer level and trying to make them prosumer and adapting them. It's real janky.
Like XSplit has NDI built in.
Right, but it doesn't have alpha.
Right.
So-
So you could send a camera across, but like you wouldn't want to do your graphics because it would come through with also just like a black screen.
Which we do for Warhammer.
Yeah, we do that for our Warhammer show. Scott,
Using this tablet.
you may have noticed Scott will draw on the top-down map.
Yeah.
That's like the camera is going into a capture card into this tablet, and he's drawing on the tablet in XSplit, and we are sending an NDI signal to our board.
Yep.
That way it's able to like loop through into this tablet and just cleanly get over here without having to like plug in a bunch of shit, because this doesn't have like an output to capture from.
It doesn't have an output, and it's also like one of the only programs we could find with live real-time drawing that's not super expensive.
Yeah.
We're always looking for tools that are available for free or at a consumer level to adapt and make them look really big and great. If you could see our studio around us, like I said, it's all digital lighting. They are all Elgato lights.
That's my cosplay foam.
I took cosplay foam, cut it, and created flags for the lighting because the lighting itself doesn't have flags. They're
Right.
cheap lights. They're cheap lights, but they're really smart lights with a high color index. So they're great for me. Well, you just have to do a lot of extra work to make them work within your system. The other thing that we've been experimenting a lot with is remote-controlled cameras. This is an Edelkrone slider that we're using right now that's controlled by an app. And it's, in theory, a great piece of hardware in that it's smooth, it's quiet, and the fact that we can even do this is great. But it's also a piece of shit. And we have so many problems with it.
I
And
can't even get a link to my app.
no, you can't get it linked to your app. I was on a gig last night doing a shoot, and I spent an hour trying to get it to work. I had to uninstall the app, reinstall it, update the module, and then finally got it to work. I'm like, I'm nervous to ever take that on a professional job. Because if I'm working with a client and I spend an hour trying to build something out, I'm going to feel like an asshole.
Yeah, you at them on Twitter, didn't you?
I was mad. So, I mean, this is expensive equipment. This
Yeah.
is some of the most expensive equipment we own.
That's actually where we put, after people and like rent and utilities, our equipment is where we put most of our money.
Not really. Not for the year. If you look at the overall year, it's not. We have like a month where we'll spend a lot, and then we'll have.
About to go upstairs and get them books.
Oh, I know it's
and
in those
beat him with
books,
them.
'cause I can tell you exactly how much we spent.
It's one of my biggest nitpicks that a lot of companies are like a lot
App-based.
of products are switching to this. Like you control it from your app, and it's like
Give me both.
any slider you buy on the market, most of them will have an app, but they come with like a remote with the very reliable infrared technology that is super old that you've been using to power your TV for 100 years. Like, just use that and let me point a fucking remote at it.
Slick. Like it looks slick and it looks clean and designed
But it's
well.
Bluetooth, and Bluetooth disconnects and shit.
Bluetooth disconnects, and the trick that we found with this one is like you got to get it set, and the second you get it working, force close your app and get out of there.
Dine and ditch.
And no, it's serious because we can then lock it in a loop.
Yeah.
If we keep our app connected, eventually Bluetooth will
Disconnect.
and
And
it
things
will,
like,
and it will, when it reconnects, it will send a signal back to
And
it
it kind of
that
freaks
doesn't
out.
match with where it is, and it just stops. So we have to like get it set, hit go, force close the app,
get
and
the
act
hell
like
outta
you're not
here.
in there. But if I have to open the app back up, it stops.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we're using this in a way it's not designed to be used. We're using it as a forever on looping system.
Instead
it's not
of a
really
single
designed for
shot,
that. It's
yeah.
usually like you get your shot set up, you hit go, you get that shot.
Yeah.
It's good for that. But we've been using a lot of robot cameras. We use PTZ cameras for top downs. Those can also be controlled remotely. But the idea with all this stuff is I need one board operator to be able to operate everything in this studio. And to do that from a Stream Deck and your phone, the big thing that I ask that all these companies do is like open up your API. PTZ does that, and now you can control PTZ from your Stream Deck. And that's great. PTZ Optics, that is. And if Edelkrone just opened up their API to where we could connect to it from a computer, that would be magic. And we could control it.
Imagine if you hit
within
a
the studio.
button that like has the whole preset and it just starts going.
If they open their API, you could. You could just
that'd
do
be
it.
crazy.
With the
Yeah.
amount of presets and macros that we've built into our Stream Decks already to control so many things.
Speed, angle.
I also have a problem with Astera lights. The lights that we have behind us,
Oh,
Philips Hue, we can control from the computer.
Yeah, but they look like lightsabers. You should.
No, these are
They're dope
they're
as
beautiful
shit.
lights.
You
These
should
are
show them.
They're beautiful, beautiful lights.
Here, look at this.
You can control them from an app.
Millions of colors,
You
just
can
like the Hue stuff.
you can set frequencies to match your frame rate. They're amazing. They're used pretty much any music video you watch today is probably using them on their sets. But
just don't step on them.
they're proprietary, just like Edelkrone. All these companies are trying to be proprietary, and they lock you out of the system.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a terrible way to go in the future of this kind of tech, because then I can't use it the way I need to use it. I have to use it the way you want me to. So for the Asteras, same thing as Edelkrone. You have to download an app. It's only available on iPhone and Android. And you have to Bluetooth connect it to their controller box. So I can't control the lights and the slider at the same time. I know that these have a Wi-Fi connection built into them, so let me put them on my network like I do with my Philips Hues. Let me put them in my Stream Deck, and then I can control them at the same time as Hue lights. Our Hue lights we can actually have running through the Stream Deck, and we can have them being controlled by the chat room because the API is opened up. So I guess if I'm going to like finalize this with anything, it's just I hope that we are headed towards a future where all this kind of tech that's smart tech is willing to be open and is willing to be controlled outside of their own proprietary environment and stop having a friggin' ego about it.
Yeah.
I feel like as a business model, people get so excited about Apple and the way they kind of built their company. It's become really common now for especially these high quality tools to be proprietary, and I hate it. I can't stand it, and I want us to have access to the way the tools function so we can incorporate them into our workflow of one person.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing that vMix is like the one thing that I've always been kind of stuck on, because I know for a long time here and at other jobs, we kept trying to figure out how do we do live animated graphics that can pull in with using transparency. And when we did live stream, that didn't work.
Nope.
When we did anything that we tried, it would never work. You'd either get like, it would force in a black or white background and it just never worked.
We've tried Wirecast,
Yeah.
which has...
Wirecast, yeah.
Wirecast crashes like crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy to me that Wirecast is such a recognized... Telestream is a huge company.
Yeah.
And we can't use it here.
It crashes
all the time. And especially when you start loading MOV files into it with transparency. So
Did
it
not
could
like it.
technically do them,
Yeah,
but it
they
would
did not
crash
like
it. live stream is way more stable. It's the most stable software that we've used for live streaming. And it has the ability for us to be flexible, whereas things like NewTek doesn't. NewTek and the TriCaster is very old school. It's very much the kind of equipment you use for a very standard kind of setup of camera, output, fly in some graphics, prep them, fly them in.
But they're like images.
Right. And you can do NDI over that stuff, but it's very standardized to a very specific format, which comes from churches and sports. And I don't think a lot of people in our industry realize all this equipment we're using is basically because churches make it happen. It's a huge industry. And when you go to these websites,
I used to be a part of that.
it's a huge industry. And Blackmagic, NewTek, Telestream, all these companies are really vying for that church market because the streamer market's still small in comparison.
Oh, the church market is huge. You've been to those mega churches, right?
Well, the streamer market doesn't typically need multi-camera switching with audio inputs and such.
And
Unless
churches
it's like an event, I
graphics
guess.
have like a variety of audio too, where it's like people are singing, people are playing piano. People
So
are
the biggest problem that
speaking.
we run into as a company is a lot of the tools that we need don't really exist because there's no market for it.
Yeah.
So we're having to combine a bunch of different programs. I spent a couple hours over the weekend trying to get vMix set up for Coloc because vMix, as we said, is the only software that we found that does reliable NDI with alpha layer into live stream. And I can link it to the Stream Deck. So we use that on D&DW, and it's great. You just hit the D&DW button on our Stream Deck, boom, here's all your options for the overlay, and it takes so many extra clicks out of running it in live stream, because to do that in live stream, he's got to move the mouse like 5 to 6 times, and that's just not good. But vMix, you can't put more than 4 overlay layers. So we were talking about using it for Coloc and seeing if we could align. In Coloc, we have pips that come up for information of the players, but they're linked to a text file that auto updates that give you a tally on how many tokens the players have available.
Google spreadsheet, basically.
Which I was like, oh, well, vMix has sports capabilities, so there's probably a way you could read a spreadsheet. You can, but you can only have 4 total. You can only have a max of 4 overlays. But we have more information than we need for that, so it won't work. And this is the kind of constant loop that we're stuck in. A lot of the things we want to do, the tools don't exist yet.
But it has limitations.
With the limitations that we need.
I mean, even I was thinking, like for when we do Hyper Heroes, any video that requires like lower thirds or any sort of graphics coming in, sometimes I don't necessarily want to have to sit there and like manually input it in. But if you just like play the video on live stream and you're just using vMix, you can literally just hit a button, brings it in, puts it out, brings it in. Like you're basically live editing on the go. And like that, I feel like is a huge weight off of someone's shoulders who doesn't necessarily want to sit there and manually input it into a timeline on top of another layer. You can just like literally hit a button, it plays for 6 seconds, next graphic.
It is a lot.
Amazing.
It's a lot more pre-production setup, but you only have to do it once and then it's set, which we kind of did for you on Hyper Heroes upstairs. We set using OBS, we set the entire Hyper Heroes setup to the Stream Deck, but it's switching OBS scenes, which you all have probably noticed can cause minor frame drops.
People keep bringing it up and I just ignore it.
It can cause minor frame drops because OBS, when it switches scenes, is kind of fundamentally changing. It's unfortunate problem with OBS, but OBS is a free piece of software, so you're like, well, what can you do?
They're trailer reactions.
The next step for you would be for us to probably use live stream and vMix, tie those two things together. It's a lot of work. But once it's done once, it's good to go. But that's all I got to talk about. I could talk about equipment and tech and things that we've built here forever. So if you have questions and you want to know about ways that we do certain things or certain interactions and how those tools work, let us know when you post your questions on Patreon.
I mean, it's super fun. Just from the last like 6, I don't even know how long I've been down here doing stuff. 4 months? I don't remember. But it's been really fun and educational. And like when Zach figures out how to do something, I look at that and I go, well, how can I apply it to what I'm doing? And then I realized like, oh, okay, cool. I can minimize my workflow. I can cut a step out if I need to because I now have the ability to do it this way. Great. This is super useful, which I love.
Okay,
Smart,
I'll go.
Not hard.
I'll go, guys. It's my turn. Everyone quiet down. So not
you
news.
had the most bullet points.
Yeah, it's
He's a bullet boy.
Congrats.
It's a lot of just reading. not really news, but last week while we were filming this show, like right before, it was announced that College Humor is basically closing its doors. They let go of like 100 people. So Adam Conover of Adam Ruins Everything, I remember a few months back when Facebook was being fined for their inflating views on Facebook, he had posted a tweet. In order to beat YouTube, Facebook faked incredible viewership numbers, so College Humor pivoted to Facebook. So did Funny or Die and many others. The result, a once thriving online comedy industry was decimated. A $40 million fine is laughable. Shut Facebook down. Basically, Facebook got fined $40 million for inflating their numbers, which is like 0.018% of their annual, like, actual revenue.
There's something more to that quote, though. He's only bringing up Funny or Die and College Humor. How many people do we know have contracts at Facebook and are going through the exact same thing?
It was a ton. And so basically yesterday I was driving and I heard, because I remember this happened months ago that he tweeted that.
Yeah.
Yesterday, he was on an NPR podcast, Press Play with Madeline Brand.
Oh, shit.
And he was talking about the College Humor situation. And he also tweeted about it. Again, the slow and then quick death of College Humor, Funny or Die, and your other favorite online comedy sites was not an accident. It was the result of Facebook's deliberate effort to kill the indie video industry, in part by massively falsifying viewer data. So what he's saying is that this was Facebook's goal all along. They were trying to kill these competitors by saying, put all your shit on here. And then as people were making that move to as people were making the move to Facebook, they were starting to realize that there's no advertising on Facebook. There's no money in this. And then even like the realization that all of these numbers are inflated by up to 900%. The numbers are being inflated. And the algorithm that Facebook was using was burying stuff that wasn't native to Facebook. So companies like Funny or Die, College Humor, they saw, their videos that they're putting on YouTube are getting 1 million views. Their videos they're putting on Facebook are getting 10 million views. So the people in suits are like, well, shut down the YouTube. Let's move to Facebook. Yeah. And then after they made that move, they're like, we're not making money. What's going on?
So this isn't just happening in that regard. And it really makes me wonder if this is something that nefarious or if it's just another one of those like useful idiot scenarios where everyone's trying to validate their job position and make it look like they're doing a good job. Because this is also happening to the individuals. Yeah. I can't say who, because I don't want a lawsuit on my hands. But it's
good call.
Two people in particular have come to me and have explained to me how upset they are with their Facebook contracts. And we started asking around because we got approached by Facebook and we got asked if we wanted to be on a contract. And it's not NDA for us to say they approached us, right?
Nah. Well, thanks for apologize later.
Well, I guess I'll have to edit that out.
Do you know how many attorneys and legal people I've been talking to? That's what I'm actually doing.
I don't think it's NDA to say that they approached us.
Controlling this guy, loose cannon over here.
I'm really good, actually. I've kept a lot of secrets. They approached us, so we started doing research, and we started reaching out. We know a ton of people who took these Facebook contracts. Yeah. What he's discussing happened to individuals as well. They would sign the contract, they would get on the platform, and if they were doing a partnered deal, a brand deal, something that was paid for, Facebook would boost those numbers, inflate them to look good to the brand that they were working with and or for. And then the second that brand deal was done, their streams would drop down all the way to, this is no joke, one of them was said, one day doing a brand deal, 40,000 viewers. Next day, no brand deal, 15 viewers. And this is a person who's doing close to 8 hours of streaming on the platform per day. So he was tracking and saying it wasn't just the fact that people weren't watching. It was like they were actively burying people who weren't paid, right? Who weren't a sponsored brand deal, who wasn't going to make Facebook look good in that moment. So if he was streaming to meet his contract like he had to, or she, both in this instance, they would have to do it a certain amount of times. But if they were going up against anyone else who was being paid for, there was no way to get views. They'd get buried in the algorithm, and then their numbers would get skewed, and no one would watch. They wouldn't get notifications. They also had data that showed that people would automatically get pushed out of their streams
Yeah.
where they would be sitting there watching one person and they would get pushed out to another person's stream, and that person would come back and be like, I don't know what happened. I was just watching you and I got pushed over to a branded content.
Yeah.
So Facebook is doing a lot of shady stuff to get views on the things they want views on. And it's fundamentally doing this. It's destroying the amount of people who canceled their Twitch contracts, canceled their YouTube contracts to go over as a non-compete to Facebook, which apparently Facebook doesn't have non-compete anymore, but they used to in their contracts. But these other platforms do. Twitch and YouTube do. So if you take that Facebook contract, your Twitch deal's done, your YouTube deal's done, you've just ruined whatever career you had built on that under the hope that they'll take care of you, and then they drop you because they are controlling how many views you get, so it's easy for them to break their own contract and say, well, you're not getting enough views for us to keep your contract up. But they're the ones controlling how many views you get.
Yeah.
It's killing the whole industry.
Well, and I thought specifically, when I was hearing him talk about this stuff, I remember a time, and again, I never signed anything over there. I remember a time at Legendary Digital Network, and Zach, I think you were gone, but we started experimenting with Facebook stuff. And I'm sure you could go back and look at some of those channels. You could go back and find the time where we were experimenting with that stuff. But I remember people being like, we have to switch to Facebook. Like our Twitch streams are getting 2,000 views. When we stream to Facebook, we're getting 12,000 views. So let's start experimenting with Facebook. And we did a thing on Facebook called like Alpha Week, or I think it was called Beta Week, where we tested a whole bunch of new shows. And this became the basis for what became Alpha, which has shut down.
Right.
So,
but College Humor also had another platform called Dropout, which is, I don't know what's the future of that.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people at Legendary Digital were saying this stuff is performing so well on Facebook, let's make our own platform. Yeah. And this is like so many other companies. Yeah. They're like, let's make our own platform because it's doing so well over here. Or, let's switch completely to Facebook because it's doing so well over here. And then only to find out that they were lying to them.
Well, I will say there's more to that story.
There's a ton of reasons.
I'll also say I didn't sign anything over there. And long before I left, and part of the reason I did leave was because they were already building that new platform. They were just using confirmation bias.
It was confirmation. It was like, oh, we're fine. Let's go. Yeah. Like, look how well this is doing. This is going to be a great idea. And like, it sucks because like a lot of people that we know worked on that platform, and it's no more. But then also on our own, just at HyperRPG, I remember our experience of sharing this. We started making some stuff for Facebook. It was like, look how well this stuff is doing.
Like anime videos and stuff.
And it was really shareable, and it was getting shared, but it get a lot of views, but no comments. So it's like, is anyone actually watching this, or is it just playing as people scroll?
But they're like in India.
Yeah, exactly. And then also we had our Comic-Con music video that got, I think, upwards of 100,000 views on Facebook. And then every time we would try to share like the YouTube video on Facebook, it would get like 3 likes.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's going on here? That there's like some sort of barrier. I remember thinking that in my head of like, something's off. Oh yeah. Big time.
It's a shadow ban.
I'm still a big believer in the fact that the way these networks are now competing against each other is going to create an influencer bubble that's about to burst.
That's my last broader question is, I feel like the way that we're watching media right now is super dangerous. We've been monopolized, and I remember like Adam Conover, his examples were like The Onion and Cracked. You used to seek out these websites.
Yeah.
They've consolidated to these platforms. Right. And you don't go to these websites anymore. You hit up YouTube, or you're scrolling through Reddit and you see the YouTube post, and that's where you go, and that's it.
The internet has become smaller as it's gotten older. We don't venture out from the sites that we're told to stay on.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful Wired article that came out maybe 10 years ago about the internet getting smaller, and how instead of I used to have so many of my own websites. I had one about fairies when I was 11. People don't make their own websites. They'll make a page on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so, all these platforms are owning everything.
What's the point? Like, I've thought several times about, like, should I make my own website? It's like, no one's going to go look at my website. They're just going to go to YouTube.
Right.
For the thing that I post.
It's designed that way. And I really do believe that it's creating an influencer bubble that's bursting in a creator field. We're already seeing it.
Yeah.
And we have algorithmic data to show it on our end, too. To share something with you that we are taking data from and seeing. This happens to huge creators who have massive followings because we work with them. We've been fortunate through Geek and Sundry and now here to work with a lot of very talented people with huge followings and be able to track over the years how those followings move follow them, and respond to their calls to action. And especially with how much we got to work with Felicia and seeing how 5-6 years ago, if Felicia put out a call to action on one platform, and then she put out that call to action on another platform that's leading you somewhere else, it worked because things weren't competing with each other back then.
Yep.
If she made a post on her Facebook with 3 million followers, I'm doing a charity drive over here on YouTube or Twitch, it would lead to thousands of engagements because she has millions of followers. It should.
Yeah.
She has a huge following that she built up through her hard work. Now
Twitter's like, stay here.
same with Facebook.
You better
They
not go
punish
anywhere.
you. If you try to link out, it buries it in the algorithm, and it punishes you despite you being the person that built up that audience.
Yeah.
And we have direct data from our own analytics to show these people with these massive followings aren't able to drive people to other places now. So what does that end up doing is if we're noticing it, marketers are noticing it, brands are noticing it, and they're going to stop paying for these people who make a majority of their money because they don't make much money making content. They make money off sponsorship deals and brand content. And if you can't drive people, you're not going to make any money. And I think that this bubble is like bursting right now, and you're just going to have a market flooded with influencers that are desperate to make a living.
Yeah.
I think more of the money will go into the pockets of the platform owners.
Yeah.
It's just the ratio is going to switch. I think there is still, a level of trust with an influencer versus the brand directly speaking to you, but more of like paying Facebook to boost a sponsored branded content using a famous actor to promote a video game or something like that.
I mean, one of the hacks, it kind of was a hack. It only worked for a short amount of time. People on Facebook would post like, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. It's going to be here at this time on that day. And then they wouldn't leave a comment on their own post
the
linking
little
out.
link.
It doesn't work anymore.
And sometimes it used to work, but for the most part, Facebook figured that out
And then
real
Facebook,
quick.
even if you embed the link in an image, it's little Facebook robots are reading the text in the image, and they're like, "There's too much
That
text in
one's
this
crazy.
image.
Yeah.
Bye."
That's crazy.
An algorithm that literally reads your thumbnail or graphic and says like, too much.
Yeah.
Too much. This proves that you're trying to lead someone away from our website. And I understand that like this capitalistic society is going to drive things to this. It just bums me out. Influencers used to be able to actually influence, and they used to be able to build. And that's the thing, it's like they worked hard on that. We've seen how hard it is to build a following on a social media platform. It's work.
Hey, follow us on Instagram. We're almost at 10K.
It's easy to sit here and be kind of like roll your eyes at certain people that have millions of followers. It's a job.
Yeah.
It is so hard. And if you worked really hard to build your following on 4 different platforms 5 years ago, and now you don't even hear that. It's like they're going to be big on one. But it used to be you had to build it on all of them. But it made you a better, stronger brand because you could cross share between those. You could push things on one and go to another. And if you work that hard on it and all of a sudden they lock you out and they just like lock you down,
I mean,
it sucks.
I mean, the most telling thing are other branded partners we've worked with who have tried to create their own Twitch channel, YouTube channel, social media accounts, and seeing how hard it is to grow.
Yeah.
And then kind of reluctantly coming back to us and kind of like, okay, we're going to work with you again because it's kind of too hard to make our own Twitch channel. And we were like, duh.
It's
you
it's
can also, it doesn't work though.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to grow an audience on any of these platforms anymore.
Yeah.
It's like there was a time where those were expanding quickly, but
Yeah.
now they've kind of leveled off. It's like new platforms might be the way to go
Yeah,
for building
for
your
sure.
new
But,
audience.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I mean, for YouTube, it was 2000, anything before 2010 up to like 2012.
Yeah.
Instagram, it was like 2012 to 2015, 2016. TikTok, I would say, is right now like that and LinkedIn are the two that right now people are like, okay, this is my opportunity to take advantage. I better get on this shit now. Otherwise, I don't know what other platform is going to show up that's going to do what TikTok and YouTube and all these other ones did, you know?
It's scary, man.
Yeah.
It's not as scary for us because we're building out a business that does a lot of producing for other people, but we have a lot of friends who've built their life around.
Like more than a decade of their life.
Yeah.
Building their following.
And they're getting just used
Oh,
and thrown around.
So glad to not be in that because like I like to tweet bullshit. You guys follow me on Twitter.
If you don't, you should.
It's like so different. I've talked to a lot of people. I've got plenty of friends with lots of followers. They're like, I got all my followers 10 years ago. Like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Whenever Twitter first started, you don't get followers anymore. And I see it now because only recently started tweeting a lot, but I'll have a tweet that gets like 4,000, 5,000 likes. Like, oh, damn, cool. This one blew up. And I'll get 2 followers from it.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you build an audience on this shit anymore? Luckily, I don't care, and I'm just tweeting for fun. But the people that have to make a living out of this, I'm like, oh man, that's got to be so stressful.
The only time I will get a huge influx of followers on Twitter specifically is if I share something that gets retweeted by a celebrity.
Yeah.
Like John Boyega retweeted something that I tweeted like 6 months ago, and I think it brought in like 100 followers.
Yeah.
But even that,
someone else
that's
throwing
a
their
small
audience at you.
percentage.
but
Yeah.
even for like it being John Boyega,
Yeah.
like 100, you're like, man, I tweet about Star Wars and movies and all that shit all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not there anymore. I mean, we even know Twitter, like hashtags don't really work anymore. It doesn't really matter because
Right.
you can type in whatever you want. It scans for text now.
So, as sad and hopeless as this all sounds, I think the core thing is if you provide some kind of value through your social media channels, different platforms, people
Yeah.
will eventually follow you, find you, reshare, that kind of thing.
I think like what you're saying, I think communities are just as important as they have always been, and there are
Yeah.
certain people that are making like
If not
their
more
followers
important
feel
now.
at home and
Yeah.
feel like they have like a presence and identity with them, and it's absolutely still working.
Yeah.
Instagram has been working pretty well for me. I go through phases where I upload consistently 2 times a day, 5 days a week, and then like I haven't uploaded anything in 5 days. But when I was doing that consistently, I jumped like 80 followers in 5 days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like it's possible. It's just really finding.
lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Like to try to figure out like what am I going to post twice a day? Like
Yeah.
we kind of do a lot of times. It's kind of like rinse and repeat. We're like working on the same stuff. We're setting up the studio. Like how many times can I tweet?
I
or
think about
Instagram
that all the
post?
time.
You know?
I'm like, oh, maybe it would be cool for people to see what we do here. But then I'm like, that's a week of content. We do the same. We're live every day. But then again, maybe we're not giving ourselves enough credit,
I think you'd have to find like what little thing you can present to the audience each day.
which is a lot of work in and of itself. We
it's-
move way too fast.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, and we already have like all of us have like 4 other full-time jobs with all our obligations.
Yeah, when we started, I was getting anxious this morning thinking about, I don't know what to talk about on HyperCast. I have not stopped working even a second since our last podcast, and I had built myself up.
I mean, I forgot it was Wednesday today.
I built myself up all week last week to take Saturday off, and I kept saying it out loud, thinking if I say it, it will happen. And I was just like, I'm going to take Saturday off. I'm going to catch up on some movies. I'm going to finally take a day off. It's going to be a day off. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Saturday started, and I woke up and immediately got kind of put on a job and on a project, and I wasn't done until 1 a.m. Saturday morning and into Sunday. And I was like, well, that was it. That was the day that I built up for myself. And, you know, I do worry even just about coming up for topics for this every week. Just the time is such a valuable resource that we don't really have here.
yeah.
I've been trying to wake up at 5 a.m. every day, and that's been working in varying degrees.
Yeah.
But also, I looked around the office and it was 11:11, and I'm like, cool, make a wish. Everybody's like this in front of their computer, like me, Zach, Adam, we're all like, and I'm like, when is this gonna stop? They don't look like they're gonna stop anytime soon. And then I'm also like, in my head, I'm playing this mind game of like, do one more thing, and then reward yourself with trashy anime later. You know, like, I like made that commitment to myself, and then it was 2 a.m. last night, and I said, okay, this is going to make me more tired, but I really enjoy this dumb anime series I've been watching on Netflix, and I deserve this.
This has been one of my
I
favorite.
will wake up at 8:30 in the morning and keep working.
This has been one of my favorite things that Malika's grown to understand as CEO. When I was CEO, she didn't understand why I didn't want to watch good movies anymore, and I always just wanted to watch trashy stuff.
Yeah, you just want to watch
when I
like
was going to bed.
dumb stuff.
And she would make fun of me like, oh, we don't watch good movies anymore and blah, blah. You just want to watch the stupid stuff. And I was like, you don't get, I'm just so stressed. I have to turn my brain off. I'm going to watch a dumb CW show and just turn my brain off. And now she's in that same boat. She's like, I don't know. No,
Give me
I just
some
give me
trash
some
TV.
trash anime.
But I think my trash TV is like on another level. Like my favorite trash TV is like British reality TV, especially like the inspirational kind. Like,
That sounds not trash.
I will
That
say
sounds
that
awesome.
that craft making show you watch
Oh,
is
man.
mesmerizing. There's some British craft making show on Netflix where it's just like this museum barn where people bring old antique artifacts and they repair
it's called
them.
The Repair Shop.
And it is exactly what you think it would be. It's so dry, so quiet
But it's
and
so
peaceful.
quaint.
And it's like the perfect go to sleep show.
And all they do
Amazing.
is repair old family heirlooms.
Wow.
I love that.
That's pretty fun.
So I brought this book that I read last year. I didn't read the whole thing because I told myself, you don't always have to finish a book. I used to be one of those people, even if it was a bad book and I didn't like, I would read it to the end, like the entire Twilight Saga. So this one caught my eye. It's because it's a number one Wall Street Journal bestseller, Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand, Clarifying Your Message so Your Customers Will Listen. Use the 7 elements of great storytelling to grow your business. And so when I saw this cover, I thought, hey, we have rebranded ourselves as storytellers, but we need to make money. Maybe I'll read this book and learn something. And I actually talked to Adam about this, I think at the end of last year. It's not about the story you're telling about your brand. It's about studying the hero's journey and creating a path for your customer to be the hero in that journey, which I think is actually really valuable. So there, you don't have to read this book. I summarized it in one sentence for you, but I thought it would be fun to have a discussion about when do we create opportunities. Hi, camera that stopped moving.
Yeah.
When do we create opportunities for our viewers to feel like they are a hero on a journey? And for me, the number one example of that is when we do charity stuff on like any of our social media or charity live streams on Twitch or that kind of thing. Another thing that we haven't talked about because we haven't tallied it up for a few years, but I think within the first 3 years when you were CEO, Zach, we raised over $250,000 for charity. It's a huge part of our brand. And as also fixing tech, I guess. But
It's alive.
we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to.
Oh,
It's stuck. It's stuck. It's making a noise.
Son of a bitch.
Remember when we were like, fucking Edelkrone, get your shit together, and I talked to you about what happens when the app the thing just decides to do stuff and random stuff? That's exactly what it's doing right now. It stopped running. Now it's just doing whatever it wants. It's decided to be its own
boss.
Its own boss right now. Edelkrone, get your shit together. I don't know what it's doing.
Hopefully it doesn't fly off the track.
Oh my god.
Hey, podcast listeners. Let me try to explain this. I think also with what you're saying, is it going to do it again? Is it going to...
I'm going to go unplug it.
We're like crossing our fingers. It's stuck. It came back.
I think also with what you're saying, we experiment a lot with like... I think someone might feel like that, like a hero or like pushing this like I helped narrative kind of
Right,
thing.
because they help create the stories that we role play.
When like giving, purchasing to interact with our stream, purchasing a reroll.
Right.
So that one of the players is about to die and they get to reroll it. And it's like, oh, I just helped that person survive.
Yep.
And those moments are really important for our viewers. And that's why so many people do interact with our streams.
Yeah, and I think
absolutely.
it makes them feel like you said here, makes them feel like they're part of the journey.
Yeah.
And I think the more opportunities you have to make a viewer, feel like they're a part of whatever you're making or whatever you've made, it's going to benefit you tenfold in the long run anyway. Because that's how you're going to get people to come back, to re-engage, to share, and all that sort of stuff.
I like what we do when it's like some sort of way to interact that isn't really helping the players, but it's helping the story. So they're being a hero and that they're helping us tell the story. They're giving us some conflict in more than just like, I want to troll this player. Like we do that as well because sometimes it's just fun to mess with people. But we have extra like things where it's like add conflict to the story and like thank you for the conflict that you've added. We're okay with it.
Yeah.
You're really
yes,
helping.
and.
Yeah.
And I think
we
Yes,
want that.
please.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think it challenges whoever the GM is or whoever the storyteller is. Now they have to figure out a creative way of implementing that into the story, and it might drive them in a different direction.
I don't find it as much of a challenge as it is freeing.
Yeah.
As a creator, when I learned to stop having this precious attitude about my ideas at the table, and I'm just sitting there letting the things that the chat's coming up with incorporate, it makes my job way easier. They come up with great ideas. Don't tell them that, but they come up with some awesome stuff that they'll throw into our Discord, that they'll throw into the chat during the show. The amount of times during Kolok that I'll see one comment in the chat room and it makes the second half of the episode.
Yeah.
And And I will never tell you what those moments are, but it happens all the time. When I started accepting their ideas, it made my job easier as a storyteller because we have to do this every week for hours a day. It's a lot of work and a lot of pressure. Why not use the hive mind of the internet to make it a better product? What do they want?
Yeah.
I feel like it's freeing.
Also in graduate school, as part of a really cool research group, it was called Leveraging Fan Engagement, and it was sponsored by Disney, Warner Brothers, Havas, and the World Cup. And we surveyed a lot of fans, and we found that the most engaged fan in terms of like social media engagement engaged through the mode of advocacy. So there are, you may be a fan of a soccer team or something like that, or the Ellen DeGeneres show, or Star Wars. These were some of the groups that we were looking at because, you identify with it, you get a sense of pride. It's a special event. This is how you spend time with your family. But the number one most engaged fan engaged because they had a sense of advocacy. And I think we see this a lot when we talk about movie stuff, right? Because if a fan feels like a narrative decision ruined the franchise that they love, they feel like they need to advocate for their belief system, which is really interesting. And as CEO, I'm trying to look at our entire brand and see, are there touch points where, there are things that we believe in that we want our community to help advocate for, like charity, like mentoring, things like that. But, besides like the obvious stuff, I think we also represent things like having a good time with friends, being inclusive, being open-minded, trying a genre or a movie or a weird indie thing that you're not used to. But I think it would be useful for us to like maybe even write them down in terms of like building our brand together, because it's always a constant journey, and we as creators are always changing as well.
God damn. That was well said.
Yeah, I tripped on my own words. The community.
Community.
But it's true though. Like I will say this until the day I die. I know I'm not a good performer. I'm not that good on camera. The one thing that I think has helped me be successful on the internet is because I'm cool with just being myself, and I like having conversations about things I'm passionate about with other people. And like I think that's the only reason why Hyper Heroes or Superhero News or whatever iteration it was worked in the first place, is because it was just me hanging out with my friends, talking about stuff that other people love, and people just felt like they always told us they felt like they were sitting at the table with us having those conversations. And like that was always the whole objective, of making people feel like they were sitting right here and we were talking to them about Marvel, DC, Star Wars. And it's like, if you don't have that, and if that's not an objective for you, it's going to be really hard to build anything.
Yeah.
And I've also heard Zach talk about like the word passion a lot, where you're saying like, this is my genuine passion, and you're just like being yourself. I think that's really fantastic. I don't know if there's a way that we could like kind of reach through the camera and be like, encourage our followers to like, it's 2020. It's cool to be a nerd, let your freak
I would love
flag
to encourage
fly.
them to be cool with people's passions who are different than yours.
Yeah.
I see all the time in our comment section, because it's YouTube, that there's this attitude of like, this passion's acceptable. And then somebody else will come along with a certain passion. All of a sudden you guys are dogging on it. I mean, the amount of times people give Emily shit. She's passionate, yo. I want to put Emily in front of the camera.
Ghostbusters so much.
Yeah, like people
She
like
has
Matt,
a Ghostbusters bumper sticker on her car.
Yeah.
people like Matt and Emily who just share how passionate they are about the world they're a part
It's
of.
not fake. That's like
That's them.
They love that stuff that they share.
And I've gotten the same thing though, where it's like people will accuse me of not liking anything, but then when I share what I'm actually really passionate about, they'll call it fake. It's like, nah, man, we support here people just being honest and true about who they are.
Yeah.
But we even got an argument one time that somebody said, because we use lights and a camera, it's fake.
So if you don't use a camera and a light, it'll be real.
True that. That argument I'll never forget. We were just like, what the fuck is this person talking about?
I don't know half the time, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Turn off that light.
Shut your lights
Obviously,
off.
this is fake. You use a set. I'm like, yeah, so it doesn't look like shit. You want to see my dirty bedroom? Get out of here.
You don't want to.
I think, just to close, if we could look as a group, kind of look together to find more opportunities for this. I know some people who are RPG fans of ours want to organize playing games together. And then that means one of them might have to be the game master for that group of new strangers they met through Hyper RPG. That also is, I think, a form of heroism and can give you the sense of like, hey, I'm doing a thing. So I like that's one specific example. And if we could come up with some more, I think that would be really great.
I mean, I think it also just speaks volumes that internally, all the people that work here, they all like to spend time together. You know, like we all go out and do stuff. We go to the movies together. We talk. We do a lot of it on camera, but we also go to events and stuff together where we also just talk about it in our free time.
Yeah.
Because that's what we like doing.
We're just pals.
Yeah.
Cool. So who's watching Cast with me tonight? 10:30.
I got stuff to do until about
busy.
11.
I'm really busy.
I
got
have
lots
to change
to work
my my brush head on my toothbrush.
I don't think I'm going to be able to go. But pretty much every other every other person at Hyper who's a host here would probably love to go with you.
If you tell Emily, I'm sure she'll go with you. She'll see that movie again. Do you guys want to rapid fire through some Patreon questions?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first question, I'm going to butcher this name, and I'm so sorry. Amith Somasekaran and the Hyper Homies tier. Just wanted to say I really enjoyed watching the first video. It was really fun to see everyone describing their experiences and their journey to bring Hyper RPG to life. My question is, do all of you read a lot of books, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, and is that something y'all can discuss on the show?
Oh, wow.
Excellent
Cool
question.
So we missed a question last week, or we weren't able to really delve into it, but I love fantasy books. I grew up on YA fantasy books, including Redwall, Tolkien, His Dark Materials, and Alana's Adventure, which I really hope is going to turn into a movie someday. I heard they're making it a TV show.
I am pretty openly dyslexic, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I love books, but reading them just frustrates me, and I have to read the same thing over and over again. So I do tons of audiobooks.
Sometimes I read to him.
That's true.
It's our thing.
I have listened to all of the Expanse audiobooks. I friggin' love them. The Expanse is one of my favorite series, but I also read a unreal number of comic books. I usually spend at least an hour and a half to 2 hours per day reading comics. And they help me, like, as a dyslexic person, being able to tie the words to the image in the panel in front of me helps me add an emotional value to what I'm reading, which makes it easier for me to read. And I can actually get through them at a much easier pace. But I love comics, and I just read a ton of them.
I'm a very visual person, so, like, reading a lot more comics and graphic novels has been a lot more fun for me. Like, it's made me enjoy reading a lot more. And I also like to put on music, so the additive of, like, the visual elements, the music, it really gets me, like, connected to the material. When it comes to books, yeah, it's a lot of audiobooks. I'm not really one. Not that I don't like sitting there and like reading a book, but I get way more into it if I can just sort of have it on while I'm doing something else.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
I feel like I absorb it a lot better, especially if I'm like reading something that's business related or social media related. I'm actually working on those types of things. It like helps sort of like put inspiration into my mind.
I think we all here have to multitask everything we do, unfortunately.
You and I were watching Crisis while doing 10 things.
That's true. Both of us had it on screens while we're doing other things. And I will always listen to audiobooks while I'm building the studio. So anytime I'm down here working, I usually have an audiobook on just because I can't just be working.
I got to have music or something.
It's the only time I'll be able to listen.
I haven't read a book in years. I read a lot of articles.
I was going to say, you read a lot of manuals for the gear.
Yeah, I read every day. It's something I can't avoid.
You read your tweets about 5 times before you post them.
Oh, yeah. I just
like 20.
Haven't gotten to read many books lately.
Yeah.
Soon.
Books are a commitment.
Yeah,
you were a big reader when you were young.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I read a ton in college even. But yeah, just haven't really had time since I became an adult.
Yeah, like how much realistic and how much time do you have to sit down and read a 600-page book? Like an audiobook.
I don't have any time.
Yeah.
Dude, our mom used to read like a book a day. It drove me like...
Yeah.
Jesus.
She was like an English teacher, though.
I know, but...
She's a machine.
We grew up around a ton of books. There were always books everywhere, and it bothered me a lot because I take after my dad, and I'm dumb as a box of rocks when it comes to that stuff.
I use the Libby app through our local library, and so they become very accessible to me. I also love my Kindle. Reading is the one thing that makes me feel like time has slowed down as an older person, getting older every second of every day.
Is that why they read so much?
It's like, like reading slows down time, whereas the older I get, time goes faster and faster, and then days and weeks and months and years are like, what happened to my life? But reading actually helps me feel like I'm slowing down time, and it makes me feel more like myself. I rediscovered reading last year. And then also reading a lot more business books because I have this CEO title thing.
It's kind of important.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, good question.
Chris Echeverry in the Gritos group asks, I love the new HyperCast and just getting to know the people behind the camera more. My question is, do you come up with the game systems for your RPGs on your own, or what other systems do you hope to incorporate in future RPGs?
So we do all three things. We'll play an RPG, but because we do the interactive stuff, we're always looking at kind of homebrewing it anyways. How can the chat room change things? Something we recently did together, Emily and I sat down and we went to the Witcher RPG book, and we just like cut things that did not work and highlighted things we really loved about the system. I even remade the character sheet to make it more accessible to players who are performing a show, so that they're not like scrolling through a million things. And honestly, like the publisher reached out and was like excited. I really love that they weren't like, you're playing our game wrong, which is amazing, because I like basically remade the character sheet. And then for systems like Power Rangers Hyperforce, or I did a Xena one shot, I made that completely from scratch. So all sorts of things.
Yeah, we do a lot of different stuff. I think for us, it's important that we let people know that there are YouTube channels out there and Twitch channels that are pretty much a like how it should be played,
or how to
or
learn
how to play, or
yeah.
like you were playing with a game group, things like that. We consider ourselves entertainment first. So there's usually never a system that we play by the book, because we're always thinking, you know, some things might be really great in a home game, but not necessarily great for camera. And we're always going to be thinking about what do we do to make it work really well on camera, and that might mean cutting out some rules.
I mean, it's like Kevin Feige when he's like, yeah, we don't adapt comics 1-to-1 because it doesn't work. We have to adapt the material. And I think that's a lot of what we do here is looking at the system, breaking it down, being like, okay, what are we going to use that's going to be the most beneficial for the story we're trying to tell, and the characters we want to have, and the types of characters, and all that sort of stuff. I think that's totally fine and acceptable, and nobody should be mad about that.
No.
But, you know, the internet's the internet. I'm going to pick one last question here directly from Patreon, from Calvin Hunt. Love the last episode and hearing about the behind the scenes of Post Ghost, whether shows have had interesting stories, and when people pitch you ideas for new shows, what is the process you go through from passing it into its final stages as a show on the channel?
We get those questions a lot. First of all shows have interesting stories because we're all under the gun and we are like just kind of kit bashing it together, resources, people, all sorts of things like that. For example, the Witcher RPG, which is in my most recent memory because it just launched last week. That's the first show where I hired like a wardrobe person, you know? So we're always like finding like interesting ways to kind of do things. I don't know if there's some particularly memorable ones. I think some of our very long, like our first launch charity live stream that was 48 hours. Those are kind of fun stories because you get like sleep deprived and crazy and things happen. Like
I remember there was one Hyperdrive that we did. It was at the old house and it was before I moved in.
Yeah.
I think it was in like March. And it was me, Augie Hector. We went to UCLA to do like a talk in a classroom. And then after that, we came and did a script reading. And it was at like 2 a.m. because it was like an overnight Hyperdrive.
Yeah.
I remember I slept in the garage. I put a chair up and I was like, all right, this is going to be my home for 2 hours. I shut the lights off and everybody was like, where did you go? I was like, I just took a nap in the garage.
Yeah.
It was like all kinds of crazy stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
you used to pitch a tent at our old studio and just sleep in the backyard. Yeah, so
I sure did.
there's all sorts of like fun behind the scenes stuff. We don't necessarily always have time to share.
Yeah.
But if you watch enough of our Twitch stuff, because we're on all the time, you get to see all sorts of fun stuff. There's like so many weird clips. There's one of Kaiju, our dog, in the background, hopping onto a table and eating leftover barbecue, and Zach is like completely unaware, and the chat room is freaking out, and Zach is like, "What are you freaking out about?"
Kaiju's just like, oh my God, yes!
Yeah, it's like just like climbed onto the table, all 4 feet on the table, just blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of fun stories. Maybe we'll think of some, and then also like the green lighting process. So a lot of people have asked us this all the time, and there's no one straight answer.
Yeah.
But here's kind of like in sort of a priority list. I have my 5 fingers out in front of me. Number 1, money. if somebody's coming here and they want to do a cool thing that fits with our brand, okay, we still have standards here, and they're giving us money, we'll probably do it. We need to keep those paychecks coming, you know? 2, passion. We got to be like really passionate about doing it. If we all think it's kind of a lame idea, we're going to pass over it.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is a little bit of money involved.
Or
Yeah.
I would say also, like, if we have the creative ability, we'll tweak it.
Yeah.
So it works.
Yeah, absolutely. 3, always looking to collaborate with new, cool, creative people, you know, especially if they have like no egos about it and they just want to make like a really cool thing. Like we really identify with that energy and we're like, fuck, let's make a team and like birth this thing now. And we have launched things as fast as like a week's time, sometimes even less, with like really cool collaborators because, you know, they have the time, they have the money, they have the resources, or just the energy and passion, and we'll do it. 4, topical stuff, right? Sometimes we got to follow the trends. Adam and I are always researching Google Trends. And, you know, we needed to launch the Switcher RPG like before the bathtub memes were no longer funny. I think we kind of caught the tail end of that, but now kind of predicting like what new video games and movies are coming out. Does it make sense for us to do some kind of tie-in?
So we ended up making like a whole list of what's coming out this year. Like, we should keep our eye on these things.
Yes,
they might do well.
And we're already like talking and producing some of that stuff. So I think off the top of my head, those are like the top kind of 4 reasons why we might make a thing.
Yeah.
Am I forgetting anything?
No, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I feel like on the RPG side of it, I mean, I know for me, when I look at like what kind of YouTube content we want to make, number 1, it's the passion.
Yeah.
If it's something that like we feel very strongly about and we really want to make and we think it'll be, if we have a fun spin on it, there's so many of videos that are out there or that get made. A lot of them are very similar, whether it's like a breakdown of a trailer or this type of review. I mean, the only reason we did trailer reactions in the first place was because at the time, nobody was having discussions about the trailer. They would just watch it and be like, all right, thanks for watching, like and subscribe. And we're like, well, let's add something. Let's add some conversation to it. And like that was the thing that really like got that engine going. And now, you know, now it's like 5 years later. Now it's like, okay, if we're going to do a video that talks about a timeline of events from Suicide Squad to Birds of Prey, how are we going to shoot that and cover that in an interesting way that's not just 3 people standing in front of a camera for 90 minutes talking about it? Because we did it for Avengers and it actually did surprisingly really well for how long of a video that was, and people really liked it. But it's like, I don't know if that'll necessarily work again. Lightning in a bottle, maybe. You know, like how do you constantly play with the format and change stuff up? So it's like the passion has to be in the number 1. And yeah, like if there is a sponsor, that's great. If there isn't one, it's like what value is this going to bring to you, your audience, and your brand and channel overall? If none, then you're kind of just doing it more because you want to, not necessarily, you know.
And I know I mentioned like a sponsor first, but we've done a lot of stuff just because we want to, and we knew it wasn't going to make money, you know. But hey,
the only thing that I've ever, there's a couple, but one big one that I'm pretty proud of that I knew would work, it feels kind of like a hack, was when we did our trailer reaction for Avengers Infinity War. I was like, I know if we get 10 people, it'll do incredibly well. And they're the 2 highest trailer reactions we've ever done. They have like almost 3 million views. Yeah. So I was like, oh, a little hack. But to close out, does anyone have a challenge that they would like to issue to us and the audience? I have no clue where Zach went.
Can everybody make a Pinterest mood board of what they want for the future of HyperRPG to be 2020?
Do I have to make a Pinterest?
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be Pinterest. It could be a collage, but like everybody will have like a little mood board to present, and then we can show it on next HyperCast episode.
Sure, I got you.
What is their challenge then?
They can make their own mood boards about what they want their 2020 to be.
Their personal 2020.
Yeah, how about
creative?
Yeah, they're creative mood boards. So if this is the year that you want to finish writing your book, that you want to finish writing your screenplay, that you want to take a drawing class, like whatever you want to do, like make a little mood board. It could be just like 5 images of like something that's going to motivate you.
I hated making mood boards when I worked at Defy.
I hate it so much.
I've never made a mood board.
Oh God,
You're welcome.
So bad.
My mood right now, bored.
Where can we follow you on TikTok?
I think it would be a cool way to get people to know like what we're like.
Yeah, and if you don't know what a mood board is, I would definitely Google search it, because like mood boards, they can be really fun, but they are very challenging because a lot of times when you're presenting a mood board, people don't want to see 15 slides. They want to see like 5 pieces of images that really represent what you want to do. And that can be hard sometimes.
I feel like they'll get a great representation of our personalities by me not finishing one,
I didn't finish a TikTok.
Adam hating it, and Lucas having the most clever thing that has nothing to do with the topic at hand.
Memes, baby. Just put 9 of my favorite memes lined up.
This is my creative 2020 memes.
Can we make something like
Just
this? I don't know.
Just like the guy like looking away from his girlfriend and looking at the other girl, and then you're just gonna put like hyper RPG at the other girl.
I mean, I feel like this would be not easier, but I feel like it would work. Like, let's say if you did one for Kolok, you did one for the company, I did one for Hyper Heroes, and he just does something.
Yeah, sounds good. All 3 or something.
But you've been doing a lot of creative stuff lately. I feel like you're someone who'd be kind of more tied to the audience of like creatively, what do you want to do this year?
I could easily whip something up. I think I've got ideas already.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, well, we're gonna wrap out. We got to get out of here. This podcast is exactly the same length as the last one, so we did it. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys leave comments down below. We'll put links to anything that we talked about in the show down below as well. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are sold, thank you so much for listening. Jump over to the YouTube channel, check it out.
Please feel free to tag Edelkrone for them to send us a replacement of the bullshit parts that don't work on our slider.
I just forgot it was not working again. Oh well.
Have we taken video of how often this happens? We should. Because Edelkrone, replace it.
It happens a lot. Okay, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.